Hey, do you think that being loud and obnoxious is the same as being funny?
Ow! My nut! You shot me in my nut! Oh! Oh! Ah!
Are you in the mood for a show that's comprised entirely out of jokes that if they were on an episode of Family Guy like 20 years ago, they still wouldn't have been funny, but they wouldn't have been so tired and cliche that hearing them makes you want to die? If a show like that sounds good to you, then oh boy, are you in luck. Euthanasia is legal in Switzerland! Also, Netflix original Paradise PD is exactly what you're looking for. Now, before we start, comedy is one of the most subjective things there is, so if you find the show funny, not only is that absolutely fine, you also have my deepest condolences. The show is what I like to call pure comedy, meaning that it's written with the philosophy that the comedy comes before everything else. The plot making sense, the characters getting characterization, or the episode sending a good message are all things that the writers are willing to sideline if sidelining those things delivers a good laugh. This is a perfectly good way to do comedy and has delivered me some of my all-time favorites. But here's the thing, when your show is nothing but a vessel by which to deliver jokes, there's a lot riding on those jokes being good.
Chief, you know that's your car, right?
Oh my god! It was his car! He must feel like such an idiot, oh my god! No, there was no more to that joke, that was the end of the scene. Let's contrast this style of writing with comedies that take themselves a little more seriously. You're probably still there just for laughs, but cause and effect is still a very real factor within them. For example, in a show like Outnumbered, when one of the main characters gets hit by a car, her family is upset and concerned for her, understandably. This is cause and effect and characterization at play, both being treated as elements that are equally as important as the comedy is. Compare this to Paradise PD, where when a main character gets his head torn open, his family puts a testosterone patch on his brain, then closes his head back up to turn him into a raging testosterone monster. Again, this isn't an inherently bad way to do comedy, but let's say in your show something like this happens. In a show that cares about comedy and character and plot, even if you don't find this moment funny, there's a lot to take from it. But in a show that sacrifices character and plot for comedy, if you're not amused by some guy gawping at a car crash, or whatever joke the show happens to be making at the time, you're not going to get anything from it other than a joke failing to land.
I will be personally executing Dusty Marlowe in the electric chair.
Dusty, I don't know if you've heard, but the mayor is planning to...
I know! She's gonna extricute me! Oh my god! I always wanted a makeover!
God, I long for death. That other show is called The Wrong Mans, by the way. I totally recommend it. It is a really fun watch. When Paradise PD delivers a joke like this, there's no merit to the scene other than the joke. There aren't any stakes behind the idea that Dusty's going to get executed because you know what kind of show you're watching. And lo and behold, if we fast forward to the end of the episode, yep, he survives the electric chair because he's fat. And the joke is that he's fat. It also doesn't mean anything from a character perspective because the characters don't grow or learn or have meaningful emotions in this show. All we're left with is the jokes. Let's actually talk about the jokes in this show. It has about 4 of them, and it repeats all of them over and over again. The first one of them being... It's funny because they said one thing, but then the opposite thing happens! What a fucking laugh riot.
No, not my dick! Oh, thank God it wasn't my dick. Man, that was embarrassing. Good thing no one was around to see it. No, not my dick!
No, not my dick.
Funny.
Anybody ever tell you you sound like that motherfucking vampire that count shit on Sesame Street?
That's ridiculous. Now let's get down to business. One gun.
Oh my god, he said that he doesn't sound like... But he does! He does sound like him!
Attention! Sniffles Pharmacy. Robbery in progress.
Someone else will handle that. We're way too far away.
Oh, that's not far away at all!
It's impossible to find him, Chief.
Well, maybe if we just sit here on our assholes, he'll waltz in and say, "Morning, asshole."
Oh my god, that's exactly the thing he said wouldn't happen. The sheer frequency with which these... jokes occur is such that it's fairly normal for you to get several of them in a single episode.
What's up with all these chickens?
Oh, they ain't hurting a thing!
Oh, why the hell did someone give this chicken a handgun?
Ha! Ha! Huh? It actually pains me the amount of examples that I have that I can't include because that would just make the video really boring and, you know, you'd get it fairly quickly what the pattern was. But I just have so many examples that I want to share.
The whole town knows you're screwing your goddamn car.
Come on, I don't think that many people saw that press conference.
Okay. I will give you 10 guesses as to what happens next.
Everybody, it's the car fucker!
I promise to try not to overreact to every little bit. Did that cunt just put Sprite in a water cup?
It ain't like I spend that much on my cat.
I have dozens more of these clips. I am exercising great restraint and mercy right now by moving on to... It's funny because it's gross! To be fair, I guess moving on to this wasn't particularly merciful. Just showing you something gross and expecting you to laugh at it is one of the show's favourite tricks.
Oh man, we're out of scallops?
The show actually does this more frequently than the last type of joke. I'm not sure this is quite funny enough yet. Oh good, now he's peeing on her! Woohoo! Whether it be piss, puke, shit, cum, blood, pus or snot, it is the entire joke. Well, no, occasionally they combine it with one of the other 4 jokes they know how to make.
It's not like I'm experiencing odd physical symptoms of guilt that I...
See, that was gross, and it was the opposite of what he said would happen.
He'll be perfectly fine in prison.
Dusty will not be perfectly fine in prison.
Oh god, fuck! Normally though, the fact that something gross is happening on screen is the whole joke. It's shock humour. The thing about shock humour though is that it's funny because, and bear with me on this, it's shocking. So when you do it every 5 fucking minutes, it's kinda gonna lose its shock value. And with that, the comedy appeal that it didn't have to begin with.
Suck my ghost fart, you bald asshole!
It's also only going to be shocking if it hadn't already been done to death by Family Guy like 10 years ago. But the it's funny because it's gross, or more general, it's funny because it's rude categories make up a shocking amount of what passes for comedy in this show.
I risk my life for a dress sock and a head of rotten cabbage?
That's not a dress sock. That's a jizz sock.
Why did he pick up the sock to begin with?
When Dad said basement, I thought it was gonna be gross or something.
It's funny because he's fat, and variations thereupon for other characters who aren't fat but are something else is another one of the show's main avenues for making you laugh. The show just absolutely loves to point out that Dusty is fat, because that's hilarious.
Next you'll tell me that you're one of those round earthers. You heard Shaq. The world is flat.
So's my police horse. May he rest in peace.
Anybody hungry?
Ooh, what the fart do you think? Move. Excuse I.
As the audience watching this episode, we know that this food is actually made of old people, so this is also funny because it's gross.
Not a single bullet even broke his skin. They're all lodged in the 5th of his 10 fat layers. He's like a walking blob of ballistics gel.
He's fat! And this is pretty much just what the characters are for in this show. Not just Dusty for being fat, but pretty much all of them are just a bundle of traits that the show can take cheap shots at. Dusty is fat, stupid, and obsessed with his cats. Gina is aggressive, angry, and attracted to Dusty. Hobson is old and loves cock. Bullet is selfish and likes drugs. Kevin is pathetic and nerdy. And Fitz is meek, cowardly, and has PTSD, which is hilarious.
Weapons out! That is not a weapon!
It's a piccolo, and it is a weapon in the war against my PTSD.
Well, he has PTSD until he turns into a twist villain for season 2. They actually show loads of these traits in the show's title sequence, which shows Dusty being fat with a cat on his shoulder, shows Gina being angry and aggressive, shows Hobson using a stick then having a heart attack, and then Bullet in the evidence locker surrounded by drugs, before it cuts to the group assembling where he's smoking some pot. Behind the scenes, while I was editing this bit, scrolling through the episodes looking for some footage of the old guy, Hobson, who's only there so that the show can make fun of how he's old and loves cock. I was just looking through the timeline for any scene where he was on screen, and lo and behold, the first one I find...
I guess you think I'm a weirdo just because I sneak into the break room and fuck the fritters?
I mean, it's not quite about how he loves cock, but it is a joke about how he fucks stuff, so I'm counting it. Fuck you. But basically the point I'm making here is find a moment where he's on screen, and you find a moment where the show makes one of those 2 jokes about him. Using characters as vessels just to deliver jokes is fine. if the jokes are funny. That's right, even while doing what it's doing, being a painfully unfunny, severely dull-witted, unoriginal Family Guy knockoff about 10 years after we were all sick of that kind of comedy anyway, Paradise PD still has the audacity and lack of self-awareness to call other shows bad, as another kind of joke they're very reliant on is taking random shots at other pieces of media, and more generally the rest of the entertainment industry.
Dusty, I just wanted to stop by and make sure you aren't getting any crazy ideas in your head.
No, I still don't think Brooklyn Nine-Nine is funny.
Okay, so Brooklyn Nine-Nine isn't funny, is it? Okay, let's hear one of your jokes then.
Explain to me again why you dressed me up like Johnny Depp.
Pretend to be a gypsy so you can sneak inside and scare Mom.
I'll do it for 10 grand cash.
Give you a $12 bottle of Dracar Noir.
Done.
Yes! It worked! Wow, Hobocop, you really like that Dracar Noir, huh?
Who's Hobocop? I'm Johnny Depp.
Whoa, wait, what? Whoa, I totally didn't expect that. Oh my god. The show was packed to the brim with these cheap shots so that it really didn't earn. Take a look at this scene where Dusty is pitching a new show to Disney and Disney Plus.
You want us to reboot a show that was a lazy, derivative piece of shit in the first place? You really know how to speak our language.
You see, Netflix gets to make that joke because their lazy derivative pieces of shit are original.
We're gonna need a creative executive to cover the show. How'd you like the job?
I don't think I'm qualified.
This is Disney. If you can wipe your own ass, you're qualified.
That skill is important at Netflix as well because it's how they write the scripts. No, but really, how can you unironically write this line of dialogue into a Netflix show? That's not to say that all Netflix productions are like this, of course. Some of them are fantastic, but their barrier for entry is... No. Alright, now that you understand what the comedy in this entirely comedy-focused show is actually like, I'd like to break down the experience of actually watching an episode, and I'm going to break down an actual episode to do that. And I've chosen Series 2, Episode 2, Big Ball Energy, and I've chosen it because it has my favourite joke in the entire show in it. The episode starts with Kevin, the pathetic one, trying to make himself more attractive, and he's asking for advice from Fitz, who at this point has been revealed to be a twist villain. Fitz tells him that he just needs to not do anything embarrassing, and Kevin replies,
"Don't worry. I'm sure nothing will call attention to me in a negative manner today."
Happy Kevin Sucks Day!
Oh, you caught me off guard early with that one. The opposite of what the character said was going to happen sure did happen.
Whatever. It's not a real holiday.
It is now. I just signed the declaration.
Twice. Okay, so we have a couple of jokes about Hobson having a Kevin sex doll, and Kevin is really pissed off because he thinks he's done some really nice things recently, particularly for Dusty. So he doesn't understand why he's getting all this mistreatment.
Dusty gets out of prison today, and I can assure you he won't be a fan of this holiday.
Happy Kevin Sucks Day! Happy Kevin Sucks Day! Happy Kevin Sucks Day! Kevin fucking sucks!
Okay then, after some jokes about how Bullet likes to do drugs, you know, because that's his character trait, we start setting up the premise that meth has made a big return to the streets of the town.
The makers of this houndstooth meth really know modern marketing. They even hired a top YouTube influencer to do an unboxing video.
Please can somebody help me? I'm stuck in a bad Netflix show. It's at this point, after we see a young girl rip off part of her own face with a pair of pliers, that the episode starts to diverge into its multiple subplots, which I'm going to go through one by one, rather than doing the whole episode chronologically. Starting with Bullet's subplot.
Hey, Bullet, I almost forgot to thank you for feeding my cats while I was in lady prison.
I'm glad you felt confident that there was no way I'd forget to do something so important. Who's hungry? Ah, shit.
After forgetting to feed Dusty's cats, Bullet discovers that one cat has become an uber cat and eaten all the others.
I ate them all.
The surviving cat, Mr. Miyagi, now has an unquenchable thirst for more cat flesh, and threatens Bullet into bringing him more cats to eat.
You will deliver my cat flesh, or I may develop a taste for dog.
So Bullet calls up the one cat he knows and gets her to hop round.
Is this a booty call?
Sure, whatever. Yeah, I want that mangy, bug-infested booty so bad. Yeah, just get over here.
When she arrives and sees Mr. Miyagi, the show sets up that she's going to realize something is up, but she actually goes, "What is this? A threesome?" and is thrilled by the prospect.
One in the tongue hole, one in the bung hole. Get it? One in the cooter, one in the pooter. Get it? One in the yapper, one in the crapper.
I'm cutting here for copyright, not because she stops. Mr. Miyagi then ties her up, which obviously she's into. Once she starts having her brain eaten, she's still into it, because, I don't know, that's funny, I guess. Then once Mr. Miyagi has had a few bites, Bullet tells him that he shouldn't have done that, because that cat has got some STDs.
Nothing can harm me.
I mean, I guess at least he didn't just say, I'm never going to blow up.
God damn! This is the best threesome ever!
It's not like the dialogue they did put in was any better, though. Alright, that was one of the 4 plots. I'm sure your life feels enriched for having heard it. The next subplot involves Fitz and Dusty. It's worth noting that at this point, you as the viewer will know that Fitz, as well as being a police officer, is also a kingpin in the city's meth trade. But the other characters in the show haven't discovered that yet.
People do love my argyle meth. I mean, not my argyle meth. Not. Good save, Fitz.
Fitz and Dusty are assigned to deal with this new type of meth that's arrived on the streets. But Fitz also has the additional motive of getting rid of this meth because it's not meth he's manufacturing. The 2 coppers drive to the library where they suspect the product is being distributed.
Now, Dusty, you wait in the car because it might get dangerous inside.
That's fine, Fitz. I'm realizing I never actually been inside one of these police cars, and I'm pretty sure I'm stuck.
Hey, did you know that... Did you know that Dusty's fat? Inside, Fitz finds a couple of dealers, beats the shit out of them so that they tell him who they work for, and as he's beating the shit out of them, we're treated to the classic joke of a librarian telling him to be quiet. Because we've not heard that one before, right? And also, just in case you hadn't, the show then does it 3 more times.
What do you work for?
If you think this is funny, can I interview you? Dusty, still stuck in the police car, goes to a McDonald's.
I got my fat ass stuck in it. You know what? You better change my order to 71 Big Macs and a Diet Coke.
He is fat. While Fitz goes to find the town's new meth supplier. The supplier turns out to be Copbot, a police robot who was introduced for a throwaway gag in a previous episode. Fitz proposes the 2 of them work together, but this is just a ploy to get Copbot to give him his recipe, which Copbot does, and then Fitz shoots him, to no effect. During this exchange, the show takes 3 shots at Brooklyn Nine-Nine, because, I don't know.
Wow, that was the quickest betrayal since this happened on Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Me and this spider are partners for life. He's gone. It's on my head.
Wasn't that hilarious?
I mean, really, guys? You're just gonna give me that clip? Like, that's so generous, thank you.
This stuff is explosive, so drive carefully.
Save 3 seconds by taking unfinished dangerous pothole road on left.
All right, then.
Wasn't that hilarious?
And I still can't find El Jefe. He's gotta have tons of money flowing in, likely making untraceable calls to Colombia.
Hey, guys. If anybody needs me, I'll be on my burner. See no Casigo NVO
Wasn't that hilarious? Yes, he is. It's time to apply the lipstick. Wasn't that hilarious?
But since shooting the Copbot was entirely ineffective, Fitz is now in trouble, so he calls for Dusty's help. And Dusty, now also stuck in the McDonald's, crashes through the wall and saves the day, thus ending another subplot. The next subplot is about Kevin, who receives a prediction that he's going to commit a crime by masturbating in front of the monkeys at the zoo. He's sort of weirded out by this prophecy, so decides to do all he can to prevent it from happening. This is the setup to my favourite joke of the whole show, by the way. You know, all 9 hours of it, I forced myself to sit through the whole thing. I watch things so that you don't have to, although you weren't going to watch this anyway, so.
All you have to do today is not masturbate in front of the monkeys at the zoo. This should be easy, but better play it safe.
Paradise Zoo.
Kevin's move here is to try and get the zoo to close by phoning in a phony bomb threat, but they aren't having any of it.
We're not shutting down. Kevin's Sucks Day is our biggest day of the year.
It doesn't matter if the zoo stays open. All you have to do is not go to the zoo.
Kevin, there's been a bomb threat. Get your ass down to the zoo.
There it is. That's my favourite joke of the whole show. It's actually a functional joke. I quite like it. Kevin's totally in-character freakout and reaction to this, being the thing that starts making the prophecy come true in a way that totally makes sense, is a neat little bit of irony, and in a better comedy, this joke would fit in. But just to make it clear, that is as good as this show gets. Actually, no, there is one other joke in the show I like.
Ninja star him, Kevin.
I forgot to let go.
As the plot goes on, Kevin's actions keep forcing him to go nearer the monkeys and eventually even have a big old wank in front of them, but the other bits of misfortune that lead to it aren't as cleverly written. When he phoned the zoo, he was acting irrationally, yes, but you could totally see where his head was at that he did that. Even though it's exaggerated to be farcical, there's a through line you can relate to right from the setup to the payoff. A compliment that can't be extended to things like he handcuffed himself to a pole so that he couldn't go near the monkeys, but that pole is actually part of a bus, which is going to the monkeys, which is just a lot less witty. One has a logical through line the joke is based on, the other one is he wanted one thing, but the other thing. But Kevin spanking the monkey brings an end to that subplot, leaving us with just the main plot left. The main plot is about Police Chief Crawford, who, if you remember the beginning of this video, doesn't have any balls. He's boasting to his wife, who's also the mayor of the town, that he's going to solve the big meth kingpin case that's been stumping them for so long. But at this point, an FBI agent enters the scene and says that he's going to be taking that case from this point onwards. And he has giant balls. The guy's name is Agent Clappers, and Karen is clearly attracted to him and his big balls. Yeah, you're an adult cartoon from the early 2000s, we get it! Wait, this came out in 2020? Obviously this makes the chief jealous, so later he asks Karen if she ever misses his balls. She says she doesn't, but then the chief finds a pair of fake balls in her nightstand. He's a bit confused, but Hobson, who's suddenly there, is there to explain them to him.
You can use them like this, or this. Yeah, or just put them wrong.
You know, cause he loves cock. Anyway, the plot progresses.
I just found out that Karen is a grade A ball freak, and I'm a little lacking in that area. You gotta help me.
You mean a ball transplant? I'll put you at the top of the donor list. You'll receive the testicles of the next male that dies in paradise.
I heard there was a deceased male.
Yep, piano fell on his nuts.
Ah, shit! Please tell me this guy didn't die by testicular trauma.
Nope, heart attack. I think it was the shock of seeing his balls go through a wood chipper.
Fuck! Wasn't that hilarious? Anyway.
The chief, now frustrated that he can't find any new testicles legitimately, goes to find some on the black market. But because they're too expensive, he ends up robbing the place. He passes out in the doctor's office and wakes up to the doctor telling him that, "I found your note.
Put all the balls in my sack." So I did.
Oh my god.
And, much like the cat from earlier, despite the horrific thing that's happened to him, he loves it. 'Cause of course he does. And we're then treated to this scene.
Big ball energy. I got that big.
This isn't funny, it's just gross. I do have to begrudgingly admit that the put all the balls in my sack bit was like kinda cleverly written, but after being pounded in the head with stuff like this all episode,
One in the tongue hole, one in the bung hole. Get it?
you're not really in the mood to laugh anymore. And it makes the rare instances of genuinely well-written lowbrow comedy much less tolerable just because it is lowbrow and you're so sick of that shit. Crawford goes home to Karen and crushes her face under his balls, thinking she'll like it. She doesn't. Clappers comes to visit her in the hospital, where Crawford, sick of his shit, challenges him to a ball off. They then stand in the middle of the hospital, looked on by a load of spectators, where they kick each other in the balls. This is the kind of thing that could be funny if it was done with self-awareness, rather than the attitude that putting balls in something makes it funny. Then...
Ha! Didn't feel a thing.
Pixelating the whole screen for this bit is the only way to do it. I'm sorry. Actually, no, I'm not. What am I talking about? You're probably glad I did that. I mean, at least you should be. Fun fact, it says fart on the wall of the children's ward here, and I'm not sure if that's because they think that that's the kind of thing children would find funny, or if that's the kind of thing that they think is funny. Same with their shot of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, actually. While they're trying to say that this is bad comedy, I could unironically see them putting this actual joke in one of their episodes. With all the episode's plots coming to a close, we end on a musical number about how Kevin sucks, as the town burns a giant statue of him. And we just have time for one last one-liner from Kevin.
I hate this town.
Not even sure if that was supposed to be a joke or not. But there you have it. Those were the show's tropes, and here's how they fit together. The show is obnoxious, unfunny, and just painful to watch. So, I mean, if you enjoy my content, you'll love it, but for everyone else, I cannot recommend it. Before you go, I have a new show on a new channel if you want to go check it out. It's called That's not a joke, was what we called it. Where me and a few creators you may be familiar with make jokes together. On another note, I am currently stranded because take a wild stab in the dark why I might be stranded somewhere. So I'm away from my usual setup, so things like Patreon credits, for example, are a lot more difficult for me to do right now, but they'll be back soon. Bye!